All right, hello everybody. We're going to get started here with section 1.1. Now what I've done is gone through and filled out the notes ahead of time so that this video can be a little shorter. So what you'll want to do is pause it while I'm talking and think about what I've said and then write down the notes yourself. But this way it'll save a lot of time for me you having to just sit here watching a video as I write numbers out. So let's start with graphs and graphing utilities. All right. So here we've got the coordinate plane vocabulary. First off is an ordered pair. This is something like you would see like x comma y, like that. And it basically tells you a set of numbers that go together and the order, hence an ordered pair. So it's a pair and they're in a certain order. You can't flip-flop them. You can't change them around and have it still be the same ordered pair unless they happen to be the same number. Some examples of this might be 3, 8, 1, 2, or negative 5, 4. All of those are ordered pairs, and something like 3, 8 is not the same as 8, 3. So you can't just flip-flop them like that. The x-axis, this is our horizontal axis. It tells us how to measure horizontal distances. The next axis is the y-axis. This is our vertical axis. So if we look on the picture here, this is the vertical axis. This is this y-axis. This is the horizontal axis. This is that x-axis right there. Okay, and the horizontal axis tells us how to, the x-axis, the horizontal one tells us how to measure horizontal distances, and the vertical axis, the y-axis, tells us the vertical distances or locations that we are measuring. The origin is the middle or center, right? The origin, it is at 0 on x and 0 on y, so it is actually right there in the center. That is the origin. Next thing is the x-intercept. This is the value where the graph crosses the x-axis. So if we had some curve going like that, everywhere it crosses this x-axis would be x-intercepts. Next is the y-intercept. So if we had some other curve or just a curve in general, could have been that same one I just did, but wherever it crosses the y-axis is the y-intercept. Next is a quadrant. Our quadrants are divided up into 4s based on the xy axis. You start here in the upper right quadrant up here, okay? And it's actually a lot bigger than that. It goes on out forever. It's really, really big. You know what I mean? It's all this whole area. This is quadrant 1. And then from there, you go around and you go in counterclockwise direction to quadrant 2. Then keep going counterclockwise to quadrant 3. And then keep going counterclockwise to quadrant 4. Those are our 4 quadrants, and they're usually labeled with Roman numerals like that. You should also take note that in quadrant 1, both of your ordered pair numbers are positive, so the x1 is positive, the y1 is positive. In quadrant 2, the x-coordinate is negative and the y-coordinate is positive for your ordered pairs. In quadrant 3, they are both negatives, right, like that. And in quadrant 4, you have a positive x but a negative y on it. You're in the negative direction on the y-axis, but you're on the positive direction on the x-axis. So that's what that's telling you that you'll have there. All right, so let's try plotting some points. Let me get some of these marks here, get rid of them. So the point -3, 2, that is this point right here, and you would go -3 on x, and then up 2 on y, just like that. And that would be that point right there, -3, 2. For the next point, 3, 2, that's a +3 on x, so 1, 2, 3, and then up 2 on y. And that takes you to that point right there. That's this one. 4, 0 is going to be 4 on x and 0 on y, so we're just going to go 4 on x right to that point, and that'll be that right there. That's that one. I don't know if I'll have enough colors to color all these. -5, -1, that's -5 on the x, -1 on y, and that takes us to that point right there. Right there. 0, -3, that's 0 on x, and then just dropping to -3 on y. I think only yellow is what I have left, so -3 just down like that. And so that's 0, -3, that's that point. So I might have to switch over here to a pen. And so let's go with 0, 0, that's the origin. We talked about that one, that's that right there. So I'll just circle it in red. And then lastly, we've got the point 11/2 and -10/3. So we don't have to be exactly at integer values. You'd go out 11/2, which is 5.5. So we come out to this 5.5 right here on the x direction, and then go down -10/3. So that's 3 1/3. So -3 1/3. So 1, 2, 3, and about 1/3, and that puts us to right there. And that's this one right there. Get rid of those. Oops. Get rid of these little extra marks. And there are your points. All right, so it's pretty much just like that. First one tells you how far in the positive or negative direction to go next. The second one tells you how far up or down, positive or negative on y to go. All right, understanding equations. Now, keep in mind we have that word equation, so you're looking for an equal sign. So an equation in two variables is a statement about a relationship between two variables, that relationship between the equal sign, and statements can either be true or false. Solutions are ordered pairs that satisfy the equation. That is, you plug in x and y and simplify the statement and it's true, that both sides then equal each other. So let's do a little example here. We have y equals 4 minus x squared right there. And so what we're going to do is go through and start plugging in this ordered pair. It wants us to determine if 0, 0 is a solution to it. And we do this by plugging in x into the x value and plugging in y into the y value, just like that. So I did that there. You can see I plugged in 0 there and 0 there. They were both zeros. And you end up with 0 equals 4 when you do that. And that means they are not equal because 0 does not equal 4. So this is not a solution, not a solution. All right, next. Determine if 3, -5 is a solution to the equation y equals 4 minus x squared. So this time we plug them in again. This is our x value. This is our y value. So I plug that in over there for the y, and I plug this in over here for the x. All right, and this time we get -5 on the left, so we leave it alone. You take 3 squared, you get 9. You have 4 minus 9, that's a -5. These equal each other, so yes, this is a solution. All right, next is try this -1, -1. Here we determine if -1, -1 is a solution to that same equation, so we plug them in. Now be careful when you're plugging in negatives. You always want to put parentheses around what you're plugging in. So I'm going to plug this -1 in right there, and I'm going to plug this -1 in over here for the x. I put parentheses around it because you have to be careful. -1 squared is not the same thing as -1 squared. This one is the negative of 1 times 1 and is therefore -1. This one is -1 times -1, and negative times negative is positive. And so these do not equal each other, all right, because -1 does not equal +1. Okay, so none of these are equal. So be very careful about that when you're doing these. And so we have -1 squared, that's -1 times -1, that's a +1. So I have 4 minus 1, that's a 3. -1 does not equal 3, so this is not a solution. All right, let's move on to the next page here. Graphing equations here, we can start by plotting a point. You will come to realize that these x squared, where that's our highest little order there, they're going to look like this kind of U shape. And but where on the graph does it go? Let's give it a try. So we do this by simply picking a value for x, plugging it in, finding a corresponding value of y, and getting the ordered pair. So here in this first one, I took and I plugged 3 into the equation, so 3 squared minus 2 times 3 plus 4, that's all right from this. And that gives me 9 minus 6 plus 4, and that gives me a 7. And so I know that 3 corresponds to 7, and so I have this ordered pair 3, 7. That means that is a point on our graph. So you go to 3 on x and up to 7 on y, and that 3, 7 is right there. Next, you do another point. So you can do something like, let's say 2. And so you plug in 2 here, 2 squared minus 2 times 2 plus 4. 2 squared is 4. Minus 2 times 2 is 4, so those are 0. Plus 4 is 4. So this is 2/4, which is going to be at the point 1, 2, and then over 2 on x, up 4 on y. And then you can do the next point as well, and you plug in 1, and you get the point 1, 3. That's right there. You plug in another point, try 0, and you get the point 0, 4. That's right there. And then you could do one more, and you could plug in, say, -1, and you get -1, 7, and that's that point right there, just by plugging these in. And then you know that this has to be some sort of U shape, and as you can see there, I drew in that U shape like that. Okay, so that's a basic way to go through and plot these. The next one I want you to try picking some points and plugging them in and seeing if they fit on the graph here. Here I've drawn what the graph is, and what you should end up with is an upside down kind of U or N shape like that in that location. So try picking some points and plugging them in and seeing how you can do. All right, next is identifying the x and y intercepts. So here we're looking for where does our graph, in this case a red line, where does it cross the x or y axes. And so here we can see that it only crosses the x-axis there. It does not ever cross the y-axis. This is a vertical line. And so the x-intercept is sometimes written as x equals -3, but a little more commonly is you find the ordered pair, which is -3, 0. If it's going through the x-axis, then the y value is going to be 0 because everywhere on this x-axis corresponds to y equaling 0. So all x-intercepts will just be an x value and then a 0 for the y. Okay, so you'll get something like that every time. Next, you can see this one is a horizontal line. It never crosses the x-axis, so we write none for that, but it does cross the y-axis right there, and that's at the point 4, 0. So it's when y equals 4 or at the point 0, 4. Note that anytime you cross the y-axis, the x value is 0 there. And so all y-intercepts are 0, comma, and then wherever it hit the y-axis. Okay? Next, I'll leave that dot there. Next is a line. This actually is not horizontal or vertical, so it'll cross both the x and y-axis. It's going to cross the y-axis right there, and so that gives us this point right here, 0, -2, which is where it crosses there, hits the y-axis at -2. And then this one crosses at there on the x-axis is where it's crossing the x-axis. That's at 3 on the x-axis, or 3, 0. So the ordered pair 3, 0. This next one is a little trickier. This one crosses the x-axis just once right there. It's at the point -1, 0. Again, notice that 0 on the y value. And then it crosses the y-axis at 3 points, here, here, and here. Those are all 3 of those y-intercepts. And notice again, each one of them, 0 for the x values. So it crosses at y equals 6, y equals 1, and y equals 8. All right, so 0, 6, 0, 1, 0, 8. And that is pretty much it for this section. So make sure you go back through this, watch the video again, make sure you understand all these things, and of course be sure to try finishing off that problem right there. All right, that's it for now. Thank you.